Okay, welcome back to module number 8, part 2, and we are going to start talking about PHP in a more serious way. And this presentation will be a little bit longer than the first presentation in this module. And I hope it will be beneficial because this is the essence of PHP. So, PHP can handle a file. And the idea that we will see is opening a file, closing a file, check the end of the file, reading a file line by line, and reading a character by character. Why is it so important? Again, the issue of the server be able to communicate with regard to the PHP file and be able to choose a file or open a file or close a file. This is something that is really essential in order for us to have interactive web or interactive website and PHP does that so well. Example, Facebook, Amazon, Yahoo, Google, all of them started with PHP until they developed their own methodology and their own language in order for it to handle that kind of users and that kind of pressure. But in the beginning, in the first stage, they build it up with PHP. So other characters first of all, how do we set up a date in PHP? So the echo date, and we can say year, month, and date, and we will do that. And by doing that, we can have an option by slash, by dot, or by cross line. It's up to you to decide what works best for you. So this is a simple example of the power of PHP. Adding a timestamp, and this is really important because one of the things that you're going to might request is to create a timestamp when the user submitted his form, so it will always be dated. And so when you're going to analyze the data table that you created with PHP, you will have the time set that the user used. So the option is a function. It's a function that is usually used in Unix, and it is part of the syntax of PHP. So adding a time stamp in PHP is, again, I'm making the example of it. So tomorrow, make time, and I set up the settings for it and how to apply. So this is something that you can employ when you are starting to use the form to send this information to the table, which is quite important. The issue of communication including file server side, and including PHP include a function and require function in it. So you can insert the content of one PHP file into another file before the server executes it. It is with include function and require function. The two functions are almost identical in every way, expect how they handle error. So include function generate a warning, but the script will continue to execute. Require function will generate a total error, and the script will stop. So those are the two options you have. The server side, those two functions can generate two function headers, footer, or elements that will be reused on multiple pages. So the server side save a lot of work. This means that you can generate a standard header or footer or menu file, and this will help you to sort your structure. So we have two options here. One is the style sheet, which we learn about the design, but we can also employ the PHP in order for us to add components when the design is not needed, or the design aspect is not needed, and so it will be consistent with the rest of it. So an include function takes the content of a specific file that included it and in the current file. If error occur, the include function generates a warning, as I said before. So how it does that? So in this example, I will show you if I will have on the server another file called header.php. So I will say to my code, I will start the PHP, the question mark PHP include, and I will say what the name of the file, and it will say welcome to my home page, and I will give some text. So example 2, assume that you have a standard menu file and it will call the menu. So in this case, you should have all the pages with a default, about, and contact all in PHP. That is my hope for your final project. However, it's up to you to decide how it will play out. So the idea here is, again, using the PHP include in the menu, so it will appear in all the on all the pages. And we also added the div class as a left menu, so we defined where it going to stand with that regard. So in include functions, and again the left menu, I lay out for you what it will look like and how it will play. The require function is identical almost to the include, except that handles error differently. So this is something that you need to think about when you are doing it. It will, if there is an error in your data communication, it will generate a big error and the script will stop, which means that if I'm going to say, okay, wrong file, and say hello, it will show a warning, 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 and it's not very pleasant to display a warning sign to a new user in your website. So this is something that you need to take into account, and just to make sure that it is. So error example require a function. So again, this is something that I did, and echo is not executed in this function, and so this is something that you need to apply. Next, we're going to talk about file handling. It's open a file, close a file, check end of the file, or reading a file line by line, or reading a file character. So how do we open a file? The PHP, if again, you have to have the welcome.txt in the server in order for it to run. Otherwise, it will not understand this, the idea of it. So in this case, if you have on the server the welcome.txt, it will be able to open it and be able to display it. So the file may be open in one of the following nodes. One is read only, or R+ is read and write, W is write only, and W+ is read and write, which is probably the preferred way. However, it's you to decide how it will work. A is the appended, which means open and write to the end of the file or create a new file if it doesn't exist. A+ is read and append. X is write only. X+ is write, read and write, create a new file, return false, and an error message will come if the file already exists. So open a file, again, I say what type of, how I want to display it, or what permission do I give the user to use it, or exit, unable to open the file. This is something that is really common when we are applying it into databases or a large set of websites. And again, something that you need to think about those things. And the fclose is the idea of close an open file, and it can do that, the PHP, as long as I said before, as long as the file is on the server. Check the end of the file is again something that is really common, and it's used for looping through the data of unknown length. So you cannot read from files open with W, A, and X mode. So it's something that you will need to make a cautious decision. And the if condition is how to do that. We can ask the PHP to read the file line by line. So in this case, I'm going to first of all say file open, and I also will say if it doesn't exist, unable to open the file. So now the issue of I'm going to ask the fgets function to read a single line from the file. So it will be able to read it and also display it. So this is something that is really important, and this is quite fun to do. The PHP also can file upload, create an upload file form, generate an upload, and this is something that even in Canvas is based on PHP code, and so it be able to upload the file form, create an upload script, restrict the upload, and save the upload file into the server, something that we are experiencing every time in Canvas. So how do we do that? Again, upload underscore file.php is the way for us to do that. Post is the idea of multi-part form, and then upload, how it will upload and what it will do. Create and upload the file form is something that also the PHP can do, and allows the user to upload file in a big security risk. Only permit trusted user to perform the file upload. In the case of YouTube, they need to know who you are in order for you to upload a file to YouTube, and this is again the issue of security can be applied. So create the upload script. This is the code for it, and it allowed us to do that and allowed us to see again. I highlight the echo error if there's an error in the upload and how to do that. So by using a global PHP $ files, array can be upload files from a client computer to remote server. The first thing that you need to see is that the index can be either name, type, size, temporary size, or error, and it will show something like that. So when I submit my manuscript for journal publication, this is probably the standard way for them to apply and to do that. And this is something that is becoming a standard. Create the upload file. Again, the issue of error. This is a simple way to upload file. For security reason, you should add restriction on the user, what the user is allowed to upload, something that it is. So an example of restriction is the size of the file. If the file is too big, you can restrict that and say, hey, I'm sorry, but you are not allowed to do that. The PHP allowed us to do that technically. And again, the size and how I apply that. Look at the echo size and look at how I apply. I have if condition, and I gave a size, and the size, if you can see, I gave some numbers in order to me to restrict if it's over it. So something that it is really important. For Internet Explorer of Microsoft to recognize the JPEG files. The type must be PGPEG. Over Firefox it's called JPEG. Something, again, restriction that is often used. Saving the upload file, and this is something that, again, this is really important and something that it apply to. So this is to save an upload file. If you upload the file, this is how it be done. And again, I took some restriction that I used beforehand and I apply that, and if it's the image, I also defined it, so I cover my bases in order for me to make sure that if a user upload, the restriction will apply to it. And saving the upload is something that it can be done, and this is the code to do that. So the script above check if the file already exists. If it does not, it copies the file to a specific folder. This example saved the file into a new folder called uploads. So what about cookies? Cookies is a great example. So cookies usually used to identify the user. So what is a cookie and how to create a cookie? Let's go. So a cookie is often identified the user. A cookie is a small file on the server enabled on the user computer. So each time the same computer requests a page with the browser, it will send a cookie too. With the PHP, you can create and retrieve cookies values. So in this case, you're going to create and retrieve the cookie if a user comes back to you to do that. The syntax is set cookies, name, value, expiration, path, and domain is part of our way to do that. So in this example, I'll call it Mickey Mouse and set a cookie for the user, and I'll call my cookie Mickey Mouse and a time, and I will set up the size of it. So the value of the cookie is automatically embedded, and so it will be part of the instant. So I gave inspiration, I gave time expiration and how to do that: 60 seconds, 60 minutes, 24 hours, or 30 days. How to retrieve this cookie when you post it on your website: echo $cookie, and it will allow us to create a print and then set up a print in order for us to do that. So in this case, this is a page that probably will not be transparent to the user, but it will be transparent only to you as the web page or website owner, and you'll be able to see that. So in the first page, when you're going to create a home welcome, you're going to set up a user or cookie, and this is the code to do that. How to delete a cookie? This is how you do that. What if the browser does not support cookies? And this is an issue that was in the past quite big issue. And again, this is something that is still debatable, but nowadays it is part of our how to support or how to apply in this case. So this is the code, and I hope that you will go over that and to do that. Next, I'm going to talk about the idea of a variable and starting a session and storing a session variable and destroying a session. So the PHP session variable is used to store information about or change setting of the user session. Session variable hold information on one single user and are available to all pages in one application. So when you're working on application, you can open it, do some changes, and then close it. So this is the idea where you're going to get the HTTP, which is the address that the user is on your website, maintain on and how it apply. So the session solve this problem is by allowing to store user information on the server And one of the things that has been used quite often, just a side note, is that nowadays Google uses analytics, Google Analytics. What is analytics? It analyzes who is coming to your website. And so the idea here is that they are generating, or if you are hosting your website on Google websites, it will create a season variable, basically on they wrote their own language, but it's very similar to what we are learning here, and be able to store it and retrieve it to further to analyze the data. So the idea is, again, creating it and to store the data. Starting a PHP session is session start, and in this case, this is how it will apply. You started before the HTML and assign UDI to the user session, and by doing that, the correct way to store and retrieve the season is the PHP $_ session variable, and so this is what it will look like. Storing this data is the idea of retrieving sessional data, the echo, and how it being displayed. The storing the session, I did not want to mention chapter 6, but that's how to do that and how to destroy the session and how to end up. Another issue that is being asked by previous class and the classes that I've been teaching is the idea of how to use the PHP to send emails. So the PHP allowed you to send emails directly from the script. So we will learn in this session the PHP mail function, a PHP simple email, and the PHP, as we know, mail form. So the mail function is used to send emails from inside script. So mail to subject, message, header, and giving you some structure to your email. So to is the require specifically to the receiver or the email, the subject, what subject of your email, the message, the header, and in that case, it will allow us to do that. I'm going to change in your notes, I'm going to change it. This is from last year. I'm going to change it, my mistake. But in this case, sorry, I jumped too fast. I will change it and going to do that. But one of the things that it's also applied to our case is the PHP ini is a file that allowed us to edit. Our web server does not allow us to do that. So you're going to do it on the script with a PHP file. So the simply way to send email is a text email. So the example, declare the variables and how to do that. So in this case, the PHP to someone, subject test mail, message, hello, this is the email, and you're going to send it. So with a PHP, you can create a feedback form on your website. The example below will send an email to a specific email address. And this is how the mail form will look like. Send an email request, and how to apply. Else, if the email is not filled out, the display form will be applied to. So this is how the example above works. First, it checked the email input field as we learned in the HTML form in session number 1. If it does not set, output of the HTML form. If it is set, it send out the email form and then submit. So the issue is the idea of how to apply and how to handle it. Handling magic quotes, understanding file permission is the next subject that we will learn. And handling magic quotes is my best friend's nickname is Baba. And again, single quotes, a double quotes is something that we can apply in the PHP. So disable magic quotes in your PHP again, it's something that you cannot touch. When you be done with the class, maybe you will have the ability and you will be able to apply or to get a PHP .ini, and that will allow you to do that. But this is part of the way to apply that. This is something that you can control, but in this case I'm not concerned, because this is something only if someone wants really to look into it. And again, this is what we learn about, and permission and how to apply to it. Directories and scan directories, we can do that. Create directories, we can also do that. We can generate the directories on the server and apply that. This is something that is the PHP, the power of PHP, that we do not have in HTML or JavaScript, and this is why it's so important. And again, how to apply and how to retrieve, something that we talked about that in the context of the textbook. So this is something that I want you to go over. If you're not interested, that's fine, but make sure that you are reading it and make sure that you understand it, because some of it is a part of the idea. So this is something that we will encounter when we will start working with MySQL. So I want you to keep this presentation in hand, because some of it will be coming back to us when we are going to develop, open up MySQL, and how we communicate the PHP file that we are posting on the website to my database. So this is something that we will need to go over it by yourself. Make sure that you understand that, and make sure that it's clear and you have a sense how it works. So handling and scan a directory is something that the PHP can do quite well, and how to close a file, how to open a file, and how to do that. Again, all of it, I summarize it in the PowerPoint presentation. So that's it for now. I know that I overload. I have a feeling that I overload. So I'm going to stop it now. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. Also use the PHP website as a good reference if I do not respond to you as quickly as I can, or if something happens or you do not understand my comments. This is another way to do that. I hope you enjoy it. Until next time, have fun.